this finger out of my hole. I've been walking the road too damn long. I'm a cripple and a riddle with doubt. I need to get the finger out.
Hello everybody and welcome to Get the Finger Out. My name's Darrell and I'm in Donegal at the moment. It's a little bit different than it usually is. The time is 12:15 on a Tuesday. This podcast will be out in 12 hours at midnight on Tuesday. So I'm quite enjoying doing the podcast on Tuesdays because then you get it on the same sort of day that I'm doing it. I just need to mute these fucking headphones. So I'm just back from the Ayahuasca experience, the spiritual ritual weekend away. I went to, well, I'll not say what the location was, but I went somewhere. I went to fucking a new dimension, to be honest. The experience was scary. It was enlightening. I left it on a high, like not like a drug high, but like a life high. I think I learnt many lessons when I was doing the experience, and it was a complete new thing for me. It was completely new. I've done psychedelic drugs before, but this was something else. This was something different, and it was unbelievable. So I guess I'm just going to do this podcast on what happened, because there was a lot happened, so I'll try to condense it into an hour. I've written down some shit that happened just to remember, because there was so much that happened. It was a very up and down experience. It was very but it in the end it was unbelievable. But in a nutshell, I went to hell physically, spiritually, emotionally. I think I died. I think I turned into a child, and I think I was reborn again. And that's the sort of overall experience I got. If there's any cars and stuff driving past, I'm going to try and edit that stuff out. But just before I get into it though, I'd just like to say thank you for everybody that's listening to the podcast and everybody that's sharing my stuff and all that there stuff. And also, if you could just rate the podcast, it would do me so good. It would be such a great favour to me if you could just rate the podcast. If you're on Spotify, just click 5 stars and say this podcast is blah 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 blah. If you're on Apple, the same thing. On YouTube, give it a star or a thumb or whatever the fuck. And yeah, I'd also like to just say that I wrote the morning routine on the retreat. I said in the last few episodes I'd been failing and doing the things I was meant to do every week, so I've basically written down a morning routine that basically gets all those things done in one go. So apologies about the blocked up nose. I have a bit of hay fever and I am outside and I'm on holidays, so I am going to smoke cigarettes during this episode. So if that triggers you, then I advise you to just listen and not watch. I've noticed I'm saying a lot already. But so it was an ayahuasca trip. It was basically going for a 4-day trip and 3 nights of doing a ayahuasca ceremony, and every day when you wake up doing a thing called cambo, which I'll get into, and on the final day smoking this psychoactive sweat from a toad's gland, a toad from Mexico. So, and that was probably the most extreme thing on the very last day. In between all that, there was like eating healthy food, a bit of fasting, some yoga, and loads of random shit I don't even understand, but it was good crack all the same. But so I got there anyway. I drove down. I got there really early, so I went to a beach and just chilled out for a bit, and I was really not anxious, just nervous, but really excited at the same time. And then when it came to 5 o'clock, when I was allowed to go to the place, I went there. There was people already walking in, and the area was so beautiful. They had this massive, beautiful building and a little forest and stuff that you could go and chill out in. So I went for a little walk around the forest. I got signed in, paid my money and stuff as well, and then we just what did we do on the first day? I can't even remember. Just got to know everybody. There was about 30 people there, and everybody was from all walks of life, from all different countries. There's somebody there that had flew from Saudi Arabia, which is mad, but fair play to that person. And then people from Ireland, people from England, people from Brazil, and people from all over the place. And the people were from all different walks of life, but a lot of people there were quite spiritual already. Some people were there clearly for the healing, a bit like myself, and some people were maybe just there to have a psychedelic experience in a controlled environment. But everybody there was really, really nice. There was nobody that was shit there. All of the people running the thing were amazing. They were so nice. They were very direct, but that was kind of cool because it just kept everybody doing what they're told, and that was great. So basically, I can't really remember what happened after dinner. I think we just had like a talk or something, explaining all about what ayahuasca is. And in a nutshell, what ayahuasca is, it's a plant that grows in like South America, and you mix it with like some other plant, I think, and that the main thing I think from it is DMT, which is, I don't even know what it stands for, detrimethyl blah 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 blah. You can Google it anyway if you really want to know. And this is basically a psychedelic. It makes you trip out, but it's a natural psychedelic. It's not like LSD. It would be, LSD is a synthetic. It's made in a lab, whereas this comes from a tree. But it's also present apparently in our livers or something, and in our brains, and it apparently releases when you sleep or when you dream or when you die or some shit like that there. And it's also in some different like animals and trees and stuff like that there. So we had at the start of the ceremony, basically we all stood up, and they were walking around making funny noises and stuff, and they had like these leaves of like, I don't know, are they sage or something, and they're like fanning us, and then this big guy comes over and like blows this shit like in my face, spits the shit out of his mouth on my face, but covers my eyes with this plant thing, and then just starts fanning me, and I'm just standing there going ooh. And then after that there, so they've done that to everybody, and then after that there was a thing called rapé, and it's kind of like, like tobacco that people used to sniff up their nose. It's called snuff. It's kind of like that there, but there was like 4 different types, and they all had like different, one of them was like for healing sexual energy, and one of them was for masculine energy or something, and one of them, but basically to me, one was strong, one wasn't too strong, and one was medium. I done the strongest one to begin with, and basically they have this pipe and they start going woo, all this like spiritual sort of stuff that I don't really understand, but I'm totally going there with an open mind and ready to enjoy it, and it was really cool. It was a real good experience. And yeah, so I guess they're just blessing the pipe or some shit in a shamanic way or whatever. So this whole thing's shamanic. I haven't really researched into what shamanism really is or whatever. Sometimes it seemed like a cult, sometimes it seemed like Satanism, sometimes it seemed holy, I don't know, but it was cool, and it seems to be a healing practice anyway. So after that, they basically put the pipe up your nose and put this snuff into the other end, and then they just go and they blow it up your nose, and Jesus Christ, I made a joke when I was there that if anybody was a cocaine addict, then that would be one sure way to, you would never do a line of cocaine after doing that shit. It just stings and burns your brain and your whole body. When you're doing the strong one, your whole body was like burning, and you're like whoa, and it was quite intense. So we all done that, and then we all had blocked up noses, and and then you're given out a plastic bag. So we're all in this big room and we're sitting on mattresses. Everybody gets their own mattress, and you're told to keep your area clean. Hope you can't hear that tractor too loud. So you're told to keep your area clean. I'll just wait till this tractor passes, because I don't know if you can hear me or not right now, so I just want to make sure that you can hear me. Go, tractor, go. So anyway, where was I? So yes, you're told to keep your space clear and everything, and then after the rapé, you're told, once you do the ayahuasca, you're told that you have to basically meditate and, you know, focus on your breath and set your intention, like why are you there. And my intention originally was, I basically want to stop giving a fuck. Like I say on this podcast all the time, I don't give a fuck anymore, but it's very hard not to give a fuck. I pretend that I don't give a fuck, and sometimes when I pretend, that helps me to not give a fuck. But obviously, no matter how much you say you don't give a fuck, you still give a fuck. And for me, it's like I was setting my intention not to stop drinking alcohol. I've already done that, and the main thing for me now is my intention is to stop trying to validate myself through other people, you know. I want to stop, you know, having to people please and trying to be funny and interesting. You know, at gigs I have a bad time if people aren't like praising me or look like they're enjoying the gig or something. All that sort of stuff, and all that stuff leads to me drinking in some way or another. And it doesn't mean that I have inner peace in my own head. So that was my intention anyway. You could sort of have an intention every night, I guess. So I was setting that as my intention. But anyway, after that, so you're given a little plastic bag. Everybody gets their own plastic bag, and you get a couple of tissues. And then you have to go up and they're blessing. So they've made this like tea or this like soup or whatever out of the ayahuasca. It's this brown liquid that did not taste as bad as I thought it was going to taste. I read online beforehand that it tasted like ass and feet and dirt, but it had a bit of a taste off it that wasn't like disgusting. It was okay. But again, we were only drinking like a tiny mouthful. But we were told on the first night, if it was your first time, you were only having a little bit, you know, for our safety basically, because it can be dangerous. It can be overwhelming if you take too much. You're not allowed to do this stuff if you're taking, you know, antidepressants and stuff like that, because it can drive you crazy. I think there's a documentary on Netflix actually about some guy that went to the Amazon and took this stuff, but he was taking antipsychotics and stuff, and he ended up murdering the shaman, and then the village people that like the shaman was there to help ended up killing him. So, you know, you don't want to fuck about with this stuff. It's not like picking mushrooms off the ground and just getting high, you know. It's pretty crazy stuff. So you really want to be. That's why I felt really comfortable, you know, because like the shaman guy, like doing the ceremonies and all the facilitators, like they all sort of, you could tell they'd done it hundreds of times, and you know, it felt safe, you know. You felt like you were in a safe place, and you were away from the world. You left your phones outside of the place, and it was a safe environment, you know. So we walk up one by one to do this. You have to like kneel down in front of the facilitators or the shamans or whatever they are, and they give you this little cup. They sort of like bless it or some shit. They like blow on it and stuff, and then they give it to you, and then you just drink it, and then you go back down, and that's it. You're not allowed to speak for the rest of the night to, you know, people beside you and stuff. You're told that the area is an area of free expression, so you're allowed to like get up and dance if you want. You're allowed to cry and blah blah blah. You can do whatever you want, and you're told basically to try and let go. And I really didn't know what that meant, you know. I'd been reading a book before I got there that my friend bought me before called Letting Go, and it's about, you know, really letting go of your feelings, you know, feelings from years ago and stuff. And I've only really started the book, but I'm glad I read what I'd read in it before I got there. And then So you all sit down. I'm sitting there like 30 minutes, and after 30 minutes of silent meditation, this music starts with like a little harmonica or something, and it's quite weird. You start to feel a little bit weird, but not like tripping out or anything. And then the next thing, you're asked if you wanted a second dose, if you wanted to top up, a booster. And I said, yeah, I think everybody did, and went up and done that. So we were told we were doing weaker small bits, you know, on the first night, just to build us up to it. And so I done that, and then I started sort of like feeling a little bit weird, a little bit sick, and then you're told to keep your eyes closed, and I started sort of mildly seeing things, but it was all sort of like, it wasn't colours or anything, it was like black and white. And you know, I was like, I had read people's stories about people that had done this before, and I was just expecting, I wanted just solutions to all my problems. I wanted bright colours, I wanted to see the pictures that I'd seen on the internet and everything, and that's what I was expecting. But excuse me, I can't stop this hay fever, and I don't want to leave you right now to blow my nose, so hopefully it'll just go away. So that was fine, whatever written down. Yeah, so on the first night it was mild. So anybody that's ever taken mushrooms before, it was kind of like that. It was like a mild mushroom trip. Didn't really see too much, but when I closed my eyes after the third dose, so after the second dose, then I started to feel sick, and they call it to purge. And purging is basically, I thought purging was just throwing up or shitting, like diarrhea, you know, but purging can also be like dancing or crying or laughing or whatever, you know. But I threw up, I just got sick, and then like the whole room was throwing up at different times, and then the music was getting more and more intense. So they started playing these shamanic drums and shit. They had these little bells that were jingling. They were like, had like singing bowls making little dings and stuff. And then they were singing. There was guitars. The actual music was unbelievable. It was like a live show, and you were tripping on ayahuasca to enjoy it. So it was pretty awesome, you know. I was enjoying it, but it also kept getting more intense. It would get louder and louder and faster, and then that would lead you to like just go bleh. And then you would hear other people in the room throwing up as well, and it was just like a weird experience. And then I remember like some guy in front of me just standing up and starting dancing, and I was like, how the fuck is he dancing? Like, I am not that, like, why am I not that fucked up, you know? And then I sort of started getting annoyed in my own head that I was like, is this it? Like, is this, have I waited so long for this and paid this much money to go for this? And then I closed my eyes, and I did start getting like mild visions of like decapitated heads and like decapitated genitals, like dicks and balls and ditties and heads all cut off in like the back of like a car. And it was really weird. It didn't make any sense. And then I remember seeing like a weird woman, and like there was vaginas on her elbows and vaginas all over her body and stuff. And then after that I took a third dose and I vomited, and then I don't remember much. I just fell asleep or something, and then you slept for about 4 hours, and then the next day everybody was up talking about their experience, and I was saying to everyone about what happened to me. Lots of people had different things. Everybody said it was quite mild but relaxing and stuff like that. Some people it didn't work for at all, and some people got really like really deep, you know. And I was explaining what I said, and the only thing I could think of is my girlfriend watches murder documentaries when I'm sleeping, you know. She likes to put on, you know, you're trying to sleep at night time and you wake up at 3 a.m. and all you can hear is, and then John murdered his entire family, raped his kids, and severed his wife's head and left it in a lake. That sort of thing, you know. So, I don't know, it didn't make any sense, and I said about it the next day, and everybody was like telling their experiences and stuff, and I'm not really going to dive into what other people's experiences were because that's personal to them, and a lot of people that I met there, I told them about my podcast, and I would hate for them to come and listen to me talk about their experience. So I'm going to keep it all about what I seen and that there, you know, and I think that's kind of just the good thing, the right thing to do, you know. So after that, the next day we had this like sort of thing, integration sort of thing, where the shaman and his translator sat up and we like shared about what happened to us, and then he gave us some insight, and I shared about what I wanted, but I was saying, you know, does it get better than this and stuff, and he was saying, yeah, you just need to take more medicine. So I was like, okay, right. So night 2, I started getting really excited for it. So on day 2, we got up, we went outside, we done some exercise out in the forest, and we done some meditation in the rain, and then we done some yoga, and we had some nice food. And then after lunch every day at about 2 o'clock, you're just fasting, and that's you not eating until breakfast the next day, because you're not meant to have much in your stomach when you're taking the ayahuasca. So we went to do the ayahuasca again, and on night 2, and it basically, so that's like 15 minutes there nearly basically already. So I'm just trying to time this right, so I don't spend too much on one thing or too little on another. So the second night I was excited for it. I was feeling healthier, because the first night I was feeling tired, I was really hungry, I was anxious, almost nervous sort of about it. But now that I'd experienced it once, I knew what to expect, but I was ready for it to be stronger. And I guess that's what they were going for on the retreat as well. So I was feeling really optimistic about it. And then I done the shit, and I'm just looking over here to... Yes, so day 1 as well, I wrote down my daily routine, which if I have time at the end, I'll say what that is. And yeah, and I sort of came to the realization in day 2 that I needed to really watch my diet, not only for, you know, the standard stuff that people want is like to keep their weight and stuff. I'm quite lucky in the sense that I have a high metabolism, so, you know, fingers crossed, it could happen tomorrow that I don't and I start getting fat. But I've never really had to watch what I eat in terms of, you know, my weight. But in a way, that's meant I've always eaten pretty shit. Like, I go through periods of eating well, and then I start eating fast food and stuff, and just eating pure shit, you know, not eating vegetables. But basically, there was more to food. The thing that the shaman was saying to us as well is, if you love yourself, you know, why would you poison yourself? You know, and you're poisoning yourself when you're eating all this, you know, shite, you know, chocolate and crisps and, you know, preservatives and additives and all these different things. And even, you know, oh, I can hear thunder. Oh, wow. There's a thunderstorm over that mountain. I might have to cut this podcast short and do it the rest inside in the middle of a thunderstorm. Wouldn't that be cool? So if it starts raining anyway. But anyway, I'll move on. Actually, I might just stop it now and we'll just move inside and I'll get day 2. But for you, it'll be an instant. 3, 2, 1. Ah, nice. So I'm inside now, in the mobile now. So anybody that can't see the video, I just went from outside to inside. But anyways, I'm inside now. So night 2, shit got real. So on night 2, we basically done the ceremony again. A few more people turned up and made some new friends. And same thing again, took the first bit of ayahuasca, started feeling it after half an hour. Then the music started, and the music was like, you know, sometimes there'd be a woman's voice singing like something nice. Sometimes there'd be like a foreign language singing, like I don't know, Spanish or something. It would be like, and then other times it would be like this like deep man's voice just going, and yeah, I can't even remember really, but it was pretty intense. But what happened to me on the second night was shit started getting scary again, like really scary. And I was seeing visions of, so I was seeing loads of stuff, but I was mainly seeing like skulls and eyeballs and things, and I was seeing like faces. I was seeing like maybe like a woman's seductive face. You know, a woman would look at me like all like, oh, like as if to say, look at you, and then that face would morph into like an evil face, and then it would melt down into something else, and then that would turn into something else, and all these faces. And then eventually when I started settling down, I only had to 2 cups on the second night, and I think I had 3 actually, I can't remember, but anyways, I basically, so I seen my mother, and I seen my mother like just being normal, just hello, blah blah blah, and then it was like a snapshot of my mother, and she turned into like a still image, and then that still image turned into a mass card that was sitting on my like table, and then I just started crying my eyes out. So like my mother had died, and she was like dead on like a mass card on my table, and then I just realized, I remember like crawling into a ball and crying so hard as if my mother had died, and it was really emotional. And then, I didn't process that to the next day really, but what I got from that, what it meant was, sort of everybody you know and love isn't going to be around forever, and that I should start, treating these people with more love and gratitude and respect, because the one thing I always hear from people that have like dead relatives and stuff is that they say that, love that person, just don't take them for granted. Basically that was the message. Don't take your parents, your family, your friends for granted, because they all going to die, and you're going to die. We all going to die, and that's the one thing that's certain in life, is we all going to die. So I think that just made me realize, don't take people for granted that I love, like my parents or my family or my friends and stuff like that. So that was quite deep and scary and really emotional, like proper crying. There was a lot of people crying that night and laughing and dancing, more people dancing. That was the first night I started dancing as well. I just felt this urge to dance, and I felt but that happened after all of this. So after that, that led into me seeing my partner, and I'll not to talk too much about this because it's personal to her as well as me, but basically, in a nutshell, I could see her in her purest form, like she was a child, but not like a child, like the best way to explain it is, do you know when you're like, if you have a partner or somebody you love, or you've been with a partner or somebody you love before, and usually around the start of the relationship, or when things are good or something, or when you've just made love or something the next day, or you're lying in bed and you just like start being like children together, you just start doing stupid jokes and just laughing, and it's like nothing else in the world matters except you two in your little bubble, and you're just having fun, and it's just fun. It's just pure fun, and that's what I seen my partner as in that moment. Like all the little things that come with all relationships, like we need to go clean the house, or we need to pay this bill, or all the problems that come into your relationship, external things that might make you think the relationship's not going so well, or things like that there. And it's very easy to forget. I guess this feeds into what the first thing was, although the first vision was like an extreme thing of like my mother dying, but this was like showing me that you're in a great relationship, and you should really be grateful for it. I think all these things were teaching me that I need to start being grateful more, but this all goes into a big crescendo at the end of what my ultimate experience was at the end, all these little tiny messages I learned. So yeah, I could just see my girlfriend in her purest form, being really happy and just being like blah, that sort of way. It's hard to explain, it's really hard to explain, but and anybody that doesn't understand what I mean, then I guess, I don't know, it's impossible to explain, but that's what I've seen. And then I said on my first night, my intention was to like sort of stop giving a fuck about validating how I feel, or validating myself, my own experience on what others think of me, you know, or what I think others think of me. And what happened was I seen like a little box, and we kept being told to let go and to go into the darkness. This was another thing. So like anytime there was like something, you know, scary or whatever, to not like open your eyes or try and back away from it in your mind, but to go towards it, to go into the uncomfortable, go into the darkness, because that's where you let go and you find your experience or whatever. So I seen this box, and there was like, I was trying to pry it open, and I felt like my inner child, like me as 5 years old, or, you know, before life happened to me, was in the box. I felt like that person was in the box. And I was trying to pry it open and open it, and I couldn't get it open. And then I got another vision. And it was kind of like, I heard Joe Rogan explaining before when he took DMT that he seen like loads of like jesters or something giving him the finger or something, and it made him sort of get out of his ego and stuff like that. And what happened to me was I had loads of people pointing and laughing at me and had phones out. It was like Black Mirror, you know, the episode where loads of people are following the woman with their mobile phones and stuff. And like I was seeing that there, and then I was like, no, don't look at me, no. And and then at that moment I was like, right, go into the darkness, don't open your eyes and be too scared. And I was like trying to look at the people that were like looking at me and stuff to break through, and I still couldn't let go. I didn't know how to let go. I was like, what do I do to let go? Like, do I vomit? Do I shit myself? Do I fucking cry? What you know? And so that moved on. Each of these experiences as well lasted maybe between 5 seconds to 30 seconds, and then it would move on to another experience. But these ones I've written down were the main ones I remember, but there was maybe like 100 every night that happened. But yeah, so then I got the feeling from that I wrote down was to try and break free of caring what people think. But I know that already, and I know that that's what I want to do, and that's what I'm trying to do. And get comfortable with the uncomfortable. But I don't know why I wrote that down. I must have wrote that the next day, you know, when I was trying to come up with a resolution for all these things. But that's what happened on night two. But on night 2, it was still, I could still like say to myself, oh yeah, you're having an ayahuasca experience, this will all be over in a couple of hours, you know, you can open your eyes and everything will change again. And by the way, when I opened my eyes, everything looked all like scary. Like when I watched this guy dancing at one point, it was like there was a strobe light on him, even though there was no strobe light. There was only candles lit in the room, and he looked really scary and stuff, and the room looked really dark. And I looked up at the altar, or like the place where the little makeshift altar where the facilitators and shamans was sitting, and they looked like really evil. And I looked at them at one point, they were smoking cigars, and 2 of them smoked these cigars in unison, like at the same time. And it just looked all like, I don't know, like really, really trippy, like really fucked up. And yeah, that was the second night. It was scary, but still I'd tripped out harder on LSD before, you know, and blah, blah, blah. So the third day is when shit got fucking crazy. So on the third day, during the daytime, we done our integration again, where we shared our experience. I basically just fell asleep and slept for a good bit. Got some food and stuff, and then we went outside, and we done this thing where we had to write a letter from our inner child to ourselves, you know, just saying, you know, all the things you want to say to yourself or something. So I went into a forest and wrote this little letter, and I wrote in the letter, Darryl, you know, you've been through a lot, don't beat yourself up, don't do this, blah 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 blah. Didn't really mean too much at the time. And then I wrote the letter, forgot about the letter, it was in my pocket, and then we were around this fire. We were doing this, like, we were dancing around the fire, and we were doing all this weird stuff. And then we done all these different medicines, which we done the rapé again, and then they put this like tobacco paste on our gums, and then they put this powder, which was tobacco something, in our gums, and then they mixed together, and it's like the masculine is the masculine and feminine spirits are dancing in your mouth or some shit. And at this point, because I'm not too spiritual, I was just like, this is a load of balls, you know. And I just felt, I just came here to take a psychoactive drug and hopefully heal somehow from it, you know. And then they basically said we had to get a dead leaf off a tree and rub it around our faces to like take all the bad energy off us or something, and then we threw the leaves in the river or something. But then after that they got fucking nettles, like literally like sticks and sticks full of nettles, like hundreds of nettles. And this was to have a deep cleanse of your body, and basically you strip down to your underpants and stand there, and they just like for about 5 to 10 minutes like rubbing nettles all around your whole body. Some people were getting it on the face and stuff. It luckily didn't touch my face, but it was like all over your body. It stung mostly under the arms, at the nipples and the backs of the legs. But I wasn't going to do it. I took my clothes off to go do it, and then I realised it was nettles, and I said it to everyone, and then they were like, yeah, it's nettles. And I was like, what the fuck? And then I put my clothes back on, and I was like, right, this is the point I call bullshit, and I'm just gonna back off here. And then I seen most everybody else was doing it and stuff, and then I said, for the sake of the podcast, you know, so I can talk about doing it, I might as well do it. So at that point it was doing it less doing it for a spiritual sort of reason, and more doing it for a sort of a fear factor thing, and just to do one thing a day, it scares you, you know, that sort of thing, you know. So I just done it, and it stung. The first minute was bad, and I was making noises more than everybody else. I was going, oh, 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 and then they just kept telling me to relax, and then I was relaxing, and then it was fine. It just stung a little bit, and then I felt happy I'd done it. But then I was so tired that day, and afterwards they give us a little present at the end where they give us a little ball of chocolate, which they told us afterwards there was ayahuasca in it. And then so we went to do the ceremony. We were told the ceremony starts in 30 minutes. We went up for the final ceremony. I started tripping a little bit. I thought I was tripping. I didn't know if there was ayahuasca in the chocolate or not. I was like, did they lie to us? Are they fucking with us for the crack? And then I turned around, there was a girl sitting in the mattress beside me, and I turned around to her, and she looked at me and goes, are you feeling anything there? And I was like, yep. And then I was like, right, so she's feeling it. There's definitely tripping a little bit already, so tonight's going to be intense. But I wasn't feeling as ready for it because I was so tired, and I was hungry again, and I was drained, and I think that was the day I didn't sleep. Actually, I think I slept during the integration the day before, but then done the ayahuasca this night. This night I knew it was different, because instead of all the facilitators giving out the ayahuasca this particular night, it was only the shaman giving the ayahuasca out. So instead of 2 lines of people going up for it, it was just 1 line of people, and it was a much bigger cup. And this night I only had 1 cup, and I swear within 20 minutes I was so sick. I was bleh, bleh. And after you vomit in your little plastic bag, you tie a knot around it, and then they come and pick it up and give you another plastic bag. I was snotters coming out of my nose. I was vomiting. I felt like I had to poop. I didn't want to shit myself, but I felt like I couldn't get up. I was so fucked. And then I went into a fucking dark, deep, dark trip. And I was like, it was crazy. Like, you know, it was really scary. And basically what happened that night, there was loads of things. A lot of the things that were happening before, like the faces morphing into other faces and stuff, even scarier. But then I felt like I found it hard to breathe and stuff, and I kept bringing my attention back to my breath to try and concentrate on the breath. And then I felt like I was like vomiting, or going to vomit, and then I wouldn't vomit, then I would vomit, and then I felt like I was dying. And then I started seeing, like, I felt like I was like in hell. Like the only way I can describe it is I seen like a portrait one time of like Dante's Inferno or whatever it's called. I can't remember if it's a portrait made into a poem, or a poem made into a portrait, but it's essentially hell. It's like the 9th ring of hell or some shit like that. And it was hell. Like, it was the hell that that I always imagined, if there is a true hell. In Catholic religion, you know, you're always taught, you know, there's a hell, there's a heaven and there's a hell, and in hell, if you're a bad person and you don't go to confession, you go to hell. And there was body parts everywhere, there was demons and spirits and skulls. I remember just before that happened as well, there was like this big hand went out towards me, and I was like, is this letting go? Like, grab the hand, go towards the hand, go into the darkness, and it went into darkness, and I was in hell. And then it was like time was not linear anymore, you know, time didn't exist. It was like I just went to hell, but then I'd went back in time before hell to my death, and I died, and I was lying in the coffin, and clear as this day I could see my father and my mother and my friends and my partner all crying and hugging each other. And like, I've imagined my own death before, and I imagined just like my friend saying, Darrell was an awful great lad, he had a lot of problems with the alcohol, but he was a great lad, you know. But this was like horrific. This was like the pain of everybody. I could feel their pain of like me lying in the coffin. I was just lying there dead, you know. And I brought the attention back to the breath, and that went on for a while. Like, usually the trips were quite short, but this went on for a while. Like, it was really dark, and I was like crying and really feeling it. And that was another thing. There was one of the female facilitators said to me, stop thinking, stop trying to use your rational thought when you're tripping, and just try to feel the experience. And at that moment I remembered that, and I was just feeling it and not like thinking, is this real, is this not? And then I don't know what happened, but I just, maybe the music just changed or something in the room, and then I was a baby, and I could hear around the room, I could hear all these noises, people crying and people vomiting and people falling and people running to the toilet, and it was fucked up. And then I just like, I seen this girl beside me like get up and dance, and she just looked like a toddler, you know, like the way a toddler, like, that only can walk, like a toddler that keeps falling on its bum every time it gets up to walk when it hears music, and it does this wee stupid dance. She was dancing like that there, and it looked so funny, and I just went ha ha ha, and then I just felt like I was a baby. And then I could hear people laughing around the room, and that would make me laugh more, but laughing like a baby, and I felt like a baby, and I felt like we were all in like in an orphanage or something, you know, like loads of babies. And I just experienced, in that moment, I experienced joy and happiness in like its purest form. Like, there was no thoughts about anything, about life or problems or nothing. I just felt like what a baby must feel like and what I felt like basically when I was a baby. I assume what I got from this was I became my inner child, you know. And one really funny thing happened. I heard somebody say this noise, and then I said it after, and it just went boing, and then I started laughing, and everybody was laughing. It was fucking hilarious. And then and that happened for ages. I was a baby for ages, and that was all fun and great crack and stuff. And then, yeah, I think that's all that sort of happened. And then I found it very hard to sleep that night. So after that, I was finding it hard to sleep and just kept trying to sleep. And then I got up and danced for a little bit and stuff. And that was it, you know. Basically, you know, I could talk about it for ages, but in a nutshell, that's what happened. I went to hell. I experienced the feelings that I need to feel gratitude, because like gratitude for my friends and my family and for my own life, and to try and connect with my inner child more, because that's where pure joy lies. And all these material things in life, like possessions and making money and trying to succeed and all these things are good things to set your intentions to do in life, but they don't matter, you know. One person can get the same amount of joy of living in a fucking tent in the middle of a fucking third world country, where a same person could get joy, you know, meditating on top of their $1 million apartment, you know. It was just experience. That's what I got from it. Experience pure joy, you know. And that was that, you know. Big talks about that the next day and everything, and that was mad. And it was time to go home shortly, and I decided, so so quickly before I go on to the end bit, every day we were to wake up and do this Cambo thing, and if you're on the video you can see these little holes in my arm. So Cambo is like, it's not a psychedelic experience, it's just like essentially they burn like little holes in your arm with like a wee thing that looks like an incense stick, and they burn little holes in your arm, and then they put this frog venom or something on your arm, and then you just fucking, after 5-10 minutes they take it off again and seal up the wound with, like, they call it dragon's blood, but some red liquid that makes it scab. But basically your head feels like it's going to explode, and then you just vomit or else shit, and it cleanses your body of like parasites and shit like that there. I just threw my guts up basically. Wasn't too much of a fan of it, so I just done it one day, and then the next 2 days I just ended up getting my money back for it. And then I decided, you know what, if I get my money back for the big trip on the last day, which is a 20-minute trip, then I'll have like €200 going home or something, and I can buy loads of food and stuff. And I just said, you know what, I've had a good enough experience. It hasn't sorted out my life, but I've learnt that I need to be more grateful, and that's the main thing I got from it. Like, life is grand, and just be more grateful. So I got my money back. I was going to go home, and then I seen people leaving, and people were saying they were going to do the Buffo alvarius, or whatever the fuck. And the Buffo alvarius is basically like a toad's venom, or a toad's, it's the sweat that secretes from a toad. The toad is from like Mexico or somewhere, and the sweat contains DMT, which is also the chemical in the ayahuasca. But this toad secreted sweat, which is a psychoactive substance, is put into like a crack pipe, so you don't like burn it like if you were smoking weed out of a pipe or smoking tobacco out of a pipe. It's like a glass pipe, so when you put the lighter on it, it doesn't actually burn it, it just heats it to a point where it vaporizes into a smoke. And then, so I decided, basically I had one shoe on, and I said, you know, I might do it. And then somebody said, you should really do it, I've done it before, it's like the most intense, amazing thing, and you'll leave here so much happier, and blah blah blah. And I've smoked DMT before, but synthesized DMT, and I was drunk, and I just remember being out of my mind, that I didn't know where I was, and then just coming back into reality, and that's all, and just going, what the fuck, that was crazy. And that's all I remember from doing it before, really. But this time, so we went into our room, I agreed I was going to do it. I just said, fuck it, I feel a bit better now, I'm going to do it. And, you know, it's €120 for a 20-minute experience, but I just said, fuck it. This ended up being the most amazing, life-changing fucking moment of my entire fucking life. I couldn't believe what happened. I still can't believe what happened. And so basically we went into a room, half of the people had left, half of the people stayed. There's maybe 10-15 people here, and there's all like maybe like 10-12 little pads lying on the ground, and we all sit down. They tell us how to do it. We have to just like fully inhale, we have to calm ourselves down first by just breathing, and then you fully exhale, and then, you know, your man lights the thing and puts it to your mouth, and you just breathe it in, you hold it in, and then they set you back, and you start to feel a little lightheaded, and then you feel a bit more lightheaded, and then as soon, the moment you let that smoke out of your mouth, I just went somewhere. I went to a different fucking dimension. And as I said, I'm not super spiritual, and I do believe a lot of this is like a psychological thing that happens in your brain. But in this moment here, I felt really, really spiritual. And I felt like I went to I just went to a different world. And I don't remember really what happened in that world. I just remember seeing lights and colours and just not thinking anything, not really thinking thoughts, you know, just... I can't even explain it. It was totally fucked up. But what happened after was, I remember lying on the ground, and I was like falling in love, and like... all this stuff was happening in instants, you know, quick, in an instant, and then an instant later something else would happen, and I was like lying face down on the ground. I was like throwing up a little in a bucket, and then I started feeling really sexual, and I started like, you know, like rubbing on the ground and stuff, and like going and just feeling really, really good. And I was like, oh my god. And then that was grand. I started coming around, and then there was one person that started losing their marbles a bit. I'll not talk too much about it, it's somebody else's experience, but that sort of brought me out of it a little bit. And I was looking around the room for a while, and when I looked around the room, I didn't know what was going on really. I looked at the guy beside me, and he was like in deep meditation, and I said, right, just do that, Darrell. And then one of the facilitators told me to lie back down and close my eyes, so I done that. And then in that moment, when I started coming out of it again, I started to feel reborn. Like, and it wasn't like the night before. It was like fucking as if I had died. I didn't get the bad experience of dying, but I just felt like as if I had died, but I had just come back to life. As if, you know, that thing you see in movies where people are in the operating table and they come back to life and they'd seen the light. That's what it felt like. But in that moment, I looked around the room. I felt like we were all like babies in cots that were like newborns again, and I started recognizing the faces again of the facilitators, and I started feeling good. And then I closed my eyes again, and then I felt so good that I cried a little bit with joy. And then the fact that I just started crying, I just fucking, this like massive light bulb moment happened. And this had been told to me the whole way through going to Alcoholics Anonymous, the whole way through rehab. Friends had said it to me before, my girlfriend said it to me before, and it was like, remember if you've listened before, remember I said about going to counselling and learning about blind spots, and I'd heard before that, you know, ayahuasca trips and blah 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 can be like 10,000 days of counselling and therapy or whatever. In this moment, I just realised that I have been so fucking hard on myself my entire life. I have been beating myself with a massive stick, and I have just been so hard on myself, and I need to just let that go. And I just, in that moment, I just let that go. I just goes, Darrell, you're doing okay. You're a good person. You're a good lad. You're not a bad person. It's like all this shame and guilt it was like it lifted off my chest. I didn't even know I was experiencing it either, you know. When I was going to AA before and stuff and talking about guilt and shame, I didn't feel guilty or shameful. You know, I was like, I've never really hurt too many people that bad. Okay, I've like annoyed the odd ex-girlfriend or something, or pissed the odd friend off, or pissed my parents off, but I didn't feel guilty or anything like that. But the guilt and the shame, it was from hurting myself. I had to shake the computer there. I had just been so hard on myself my whole life, and I don't need to be. And I just realised that there and then, and I realised how beautiful life is, and how lucky I am to be alive, for one, and how lucky I am to be living in this country that I am. You know, there's many people live in like war-torn countries and are born into it, and people don't have food, people don't have clean water, and like I have all these things. I am in the top 1% of the world of people, and you know, I am far from poverty. I am, you know, everything is fine. My life is going okay, and I am like beating myself over and over again to try and do better, to try and do this and blah blah blah. Okay, I need to stay away from alcohol. It's the fucking devil to me. But apart from that, all this thing about beating myself up, or procrastination even, about not getting things done, it's like, it's okay, Darrell, it's okay. And then the floodgates opened, and I fucking bawled my eyes out for I don't know how long. It seemed like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that. And I just cried harder than I ever imagined, or harder than I ever remember ever crying in my entire life. I just cried and cried, and it felt so fucking releasing. And I guess for me in that moment, that was me letting go. I was letting go of this shit that I hold on myself, that I need to do better and I need to do this. And I guess this is just the words of, you know, my father telling me I need to do this, I need to do this, my school teachers telling me I need to do better, you know, the world telling me I need to do better, my own ego telling me I need to live up to what my ego is sometimes we think we're better than we are with our egos, and my ego would do that if something good happens, like many times in life, something good happens, whether you win a pack of money, or you, like, I've went on, like, released music or went on a TV show or something like that, and then my ego for a full day goes like that, and then I think I'm better than people, and then as time goes on you think you need to live up to that and stuff and all that. Just all the things in life that I have fucking told myself that I need to be doing, I was like just released from all that. I was just like, everything is grand in this moment, and all the moments that are probably going to follow, apart from suffering that you'll come across on a random idle Tuesday or something like that, everything is fine. And after I cried, they told me to take my socks off and go outside into the forest and ground myself, So I went outside with a guy I met there, and we were talking about our experiences, and I was crying a little bit more, and we were just talking about how happy we felt. And then other people that had done the experience were coming out, and we were all just hugging each other, and like I was crying, and I jumped into a little stream and covering myself in water and stuff, and then we all said goodbye, and I went around, I made sure to get around to everybody and learn what everybody's experience was like, and tell everybody about my experience, and say goodbye to everybody sort of as well. And it was just it was magical. It was absolutely magical. And I left that day saying, I have so much gratitude, and I have so much gratitude, and I need to stop taking life so seriously, and I'm doing okay, and I'm a good person, and there's good in everybody, and it just felt so fucking good. And that was it. That was the end of it. And it's been 2 days since I'm home now, and there's been a few situations that have happened that I've like sort of stressed about, and then I'm like telling myself, oh shit, maybe it didn't work, because I'm getting stressed and stuff. But I realized, the whole world, everything in the world like that isn't nature, things like TV and bad food and gossip and all the bad things in the world, they're all there weighing us down and fucking being negative influences in our brain. But I have a lot of control of what I do put into my brain and into my body, and that's why I've started trying to eat healthy. And it doesn't feel like a chore now. It's not like I'm on a diet where I'm like blah blah blah. It's like I don't want to eat that chocolate because it might taste good for a few seconds, but it's poisonous for my body. It's not meant to go in my body, and I don't want to eat all these shit foods. So at the minute I'll get into diet and some other podcasts, who knows if I'll keep it up. I had a big barbecue yesterday with loads of meat. It was great. But yeah, so I get to choose what I put in my body, and I get to choose what I put in my mind, what I read on the internet and blah blah blah. But that was my realization there yesterday as well. It's a daily practice of getting back to that spot. So there was another thing we done in the retreat before we were tripping, where the shaman made us all close our eyes, and we were talking about the inner child and making the inner child go into our hearts and stuff, and that made me really emotional as well. And I think a lot of it was this just connecting back with your true inner self and connecting with nature. And that's the things that I realise I need to be doing more in my life. I don't need to be trying to make more money or trying to, get more likes on a Facebook fucking thing or something. All these things might be good for business or whatever. I'll still try to do these things to, for the podcast, say, I'll still try to promote it and stuff like that. But I'm not going to really get annoyed, if things aren't working out and stuff like that. What really matters is getting into your bare feet and standing in the fucking nature and meditating and usually meditation I'm trying to think of nothing, but now in meditation I'm really going to be trying to breathe into my heart and breathe where my inner child is, and really just connecting with my true authentic self, if that makes any sense. And yeah, who knows how long this will last. This good feeling is still there. And even yesterday when I was getting too hungry or too tired or too much hay fever, I could still feel stress and stuff. I'm not like some big enlightened being. You know, it is the human condition to feel the external things in the world, but the thing is you can feel things in the moment, but you don't need to like internalize them, you know. You don't need to like let that stressful situation affect you for the next week. You can just feel it in that moment, and then listen to your body. If you're hungry, eat. If you're tired, sleep. If you need some rest instead of doing work, get some rest. Take a few days off work, you know. Do whatever's in your control. And that's where the serenity prayer, I said the serenity prayer a lot. Like, God, give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's like the big prayer in Alcoholics Anonymous. And you know, I'll be saying that a lot. So another thing is as well, like, I felt like I didn't need to go to an AA meeting yesterday, and I said to myself, you know what, I have a choice of what is good and bad and what I put in my body, and AA is good for my body, good for my brain. So I went to a meeting yesterday anyway, and I'm glad I did, because I want to get back into the routine, and I feel like it will help with my AA, my program in AA, because normally my problem with AA is the spiritual aspect of it, but I think doing that experience that I've done really helps. And lastly, I'll finish on the idea of drinking alcohol. Like I mentioned before, I look at chocolate, I don't really get even sucked into the idea of the taste of it anymore. I know I'm just saying this 2 days after, because I'm still on a high. You know, maybe next week I'll be stuffing my face, but at the moment, the idea of alcohol is just, it makes me want to retch, you know. It's like, why would I put that fucking poison in my body? Why? You know, it just seems so stupid to just feel numb, you know, emotionally numb or whatever. Yeah, so all in all, it was an unbelievable experience, and I would definitely do it again, but I'll definitely be leaving it a while. I still need to process everything that happened, and it's just great to know that something like that is out there. And yeah, that's great. So for next week, I'm going to try and think of the next crazy new thing that I'm going to aim towards. I've ordered a freezer off the internet. It's like £150. Basically, that freezer, I'm going to fill it with ice, and that way I can start doing my ice baths every day. I said I would talk about the daily routine that I wrote at the end, but I'll just say very quickly what it is. I'm going to start this at the weekend, but basically I'm going to try and start waking up at 6 in the morning. Going to wake up and put the ice in the bath, and then I'm going to walk the dog and drink water with a full lemon in the water, because apparently lemon in the water hydrates you better, and the whole reason you have brain fog in the morning is because your brain's dehydrated. And also, I was talking about brain fog before in another podcast. I get a lot of brain fog, and I realised, and I was told, like, the brain fog comes from all the shit you eat, you know, all the toxins you put in your body. So I can't wait to see what I feel like in a month after eating healthy. I've been eating healthy for about a week now, so I can't wait to see what it's like. After that, I'm going to shower for 10 minutes, then do the Wim Hof breathing. For anybody that doesn't know the Wim Hof breathing, you should Google it and YouTube it. You can do it right now. It takes about 5-10 minutes, and you're basically just breathing in and out really fast and oxidizing your blood so that you can hold your breath without breathing for like 2 or 3 minutes, and then you do it like 2 or 3 times, and you get like you get high from doing it. Try it out, Google it or YouTube it, it's mad. And then I'll get in my ice bath and do my 3-4 minutes in the ice bath, and then I'm going to eat some healthy breakfast and set my intention for the day, and then I'm going to clean my house for like 20 minutes, and then I'm going to start doing everything I need to do. And then my nighttime routine is going to be, if I'm tired at 5 o'clock, I'm going to have a nap, and I'm going to plan my next day at night. Every night on Google, I'm going to plan the next day, and I'm going to cut off TV at like 10 or 11 o'clock. I haven't decided yet, so that I can just sort of get into a nice good sleep rhythm, because sleep is very important as well. And so yeah, through and through, it was a really positive experience. I would definitely do it again. It was fucking unbelievable. It was crazy, it was scary, it was out of this world. And anybody that's feeling pain and doesn't have any serious psychological conditions, I would strongly advise that you find out where they do this stuff. I'm not going to say it on the podcast, and do it, because it was unbelievable, life-changing. So I'll see you next week. Don't forget to rate the podcast and like and share and do all the things that will help me. This podcast is free, but you could help me by telling your friends about the podcast or liking it or sharing it and all that stuff. So see you next week. Get the finger right. My name's Darrell. Rock and roll. See ya.
I need to get this finger out of my hole. I've been walking the road too damn long. I'm a cripple and a riddle with doubt. I need to get the